Hello, my name is Floyd Wills. I'm the author of The Red-Haired Giants of Lovelock Cave and Other Ancient Mysteries. The central story of my book revolves around a northern Paiute tale of a race of red-haired giants that lived in Nevada in an area known as Lovelock Cave. These red-haired giants, they were violent, they were cannibalistic, they would attack neighboring tribes and murder their victims and eat them. Finally, the Northern Paiute banded together with other local tribes and they waged war on these giants, which lasted over 3 years, ultimately culminating in a final battle at Lovelock Cave. The Paiutes threw brush in front of the cave entrance and shot flaming arrows and burnt the giants to death. In 1911, 2 guano miners who were mining Lovelock Cave discovered a number of ancient artifacts along with giant skeletons, some of which still had red hair attached. They immediately notified the local university, which called in an archaeologist by the name of L.L. Loud to excavate the cave. Over 10,000 artifacts came out of the cave, in addition to a number of very large skeletal remains. The artifacts were distributed to several museums, but strangely, the skeletons disappeared out of the public view. Allegedly, though, some of the skulls that came out of Lovelock Cave ended up in a small museum in Winnemucca. Strangely, though, the skulls were never kept in the public view. They were kept in the basement under lock and key, and if you wanted to view the skulls, you had to ask the curator to show you the skulls. Unfortunately, those skulls are no longer in the museum in Winnemucca. And I asked the question in my book, what happened to the skulls? What happened to the mummies? And why are they kept hidden from the public? Is there truth behind the Paiute tales of who these giants were? And if so, who were they? In addition to the story of the red-haired giants, during my research uncovering old newspaper accounts of giant skeleton discoveries throughout North America, I also came across some discoveries of little people discoveries, also known as pygmy skeletons or dwarf skeletons, particularly in the area of Tennessee. In the first account I found said that there were over 75,000 little skeletons no taller than 3 feet found on a farm in Tennessee. And the more I started looking into these tales of giants and little people, I discovered in most tribes throughout North America, they have in their oral tradition and legends tales of giants and little people. Could there be any truth behind these tales? In the early 2000s, on the Isle of Flores in Indonesia, archaeologists discovered a small race of hominids that they dubbed the Flores Hobbit. These were not much taller than 3 feet, and they were intelligent. They knew how to make tools and weapons. They knew how to make fire. And some archaeologists believe that this race of little people existed up till about 13,000 years ago. And throughout Indonesia to this day, there are many tribes that believe some of these little people still exist, and they call them the Ibu Gogu, or means grandmother who eats everything, because apparently these little people have ravenous appetites. In my book, I explore some of these oral traditions and legends and try to trace back these tales to see if there is a kernel of truth, because I believe where there's smoke, there's fire. And these legends spoken about in all these different cultures throughout the world, they may have some truth. And if there's truth in these legends, what are the implications for us? Who were the giants? Were they just another branch of our evolutionary species, or were they something else? Could they be of extraterrestrial origin? In addition to the giants and investigations into these little people, I also start to go in depth into the elongated skull people of Peru and go into cranial deformation, Why did these cultures throughout the world, why did they want to elongate their skull? What was the purpose of that? Was it just a form of body modification because they wanted to look different? Or is it because maybe they interacted with beings that had elongated heads, that perhaps had some higher form of technology, and these ancient peoples maybe viewed them as gods and they wanted to be like them, so they wanted to look like them? I also go in depth into the Ica Stones and the Acambaro figurines, strange artifacts that depict interactions with men, with dinosaurs. Is that just a hoax? Or did these ancient peoples actually depict these events that they actually experienced? And if so, if this was true, if this was real, it would totally go against everything we've been taught in history. If you ever thought that maybe history isn't exactly as we've been told, then you may be very interested in my book, which can be found at bookbaby.com. It's also on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Thanks for checking out my channel.